if you want your business to outperform your competition by 202%, what should you do? And it's help your employees build their own personal brands, because you are setting them up and telling them that you want them to have a voice in what's going on for your organization as well.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Leads to Growth. Very excited to be here today again. You know why? Because we just woke up today and we're alive, and there's a lot to be grateful for. And as usual, I attracted some pretty amazing talent, and we've got a very special guest with us today. The topic of conversation today, which I'm really excited about, is really about building your own brand. And we've got here today with us Chellie Phillips. What a fun name, right? And Chellie is a corporate trainer. She's a motivational speaker. She's an award-winning author, 2 books. When in doubt, delete it, which is great, right? Trial and error. I love that idea. And then get noticed, get hired. And what better time than now to have this conversation, not just about getting hired, but about building your own brand and building a unique selling, angle and a unique selling proposition for people these days. Chellie, thank you for being with us here today.
Hi, I'm great. So happy to be here. So I've been looking forward to having this conversation for a while.
Absolutely. And y'all, the great thing is, I always love sharing the stories of how I, came across people. Chellie reached out to me, and when I looked at her brand, it's very easy. When we get hit up all the time, if we're in sales, if we're in business, we get hit up all the time. And what is the first thing that you do? If an offer catches you, if an offer is enough to at least get your attention, the first thing you do is go look at that brand. Does the brand, all right, I see the offer here above the line of authority. Does the brand coordinate with that? Is it aligned? And that is so important. And so many times we take that for granted, don't we, Chellie?
Absolutely. I tell people you have a brand whether you actively curate it or not, because people are going to make an impression of you based on what they've seen, what they've heard. And if they can't see anything and they don't hear anything, that's almost as bad as having, something out there that may not be as perfect as you want it to be, because they're already assuming that, oh, this person doesn't have it all together because there's nothing for me to find about them.
Absolutely. Just being able to be found is almost like step number 1, right? It's so funny if you've looked at a business before, and this maybe has changed a little bit now, but I remember the first thing I would do was go to Facebook, and this business, I wasn't even on Facebook. That was before it was a website, then it became Facebook, and now it's the same with people. And it's not just if you're looking to get hired. If you are in sales, if you are in any area of business, you need a brand. Isn't this correct, Chellie?
Yeah, you think about it, there's so much mistrust in the world today. So having a personal brand can really help you get more replies and get more yeses and get more sales, because people want to interact with people that they know. So how do people learn you? If it's not somebody that you know one-on-one that you can have a face-to-face with, the first place that they're going to go look is the internet. So they're going to check out your LinkedIn. They're going to check out a website. They're going to check out a company website, see if you're mentioned on there. So people really want to engage with people that they like. And there's no better way for you to introduce yourself or to engage with them than giving them a platform that you control. And that's really what it's all about, is you setting that tone, you setting that message, you becoming the go-to person for them to be able to get the information, and that they trust that the information that you're giving them is spot on.
I love that. And I think I've heard this term from Seth Godin. I think I used it shortly ago. It's the line of authority, right? And as Chellie said, you don't have to have everything out there that's perfect, right? You just have to be the one with a lot of confidence, and confidence can come through in the way you display your brand very easily. I love this topic. Well, first off, Chellie, I want to know, how did you get into working with brands? I mean, it is a perfect time for it. I love it right now. It's so needed. And somebody with your skill set to be able to show people how to do this now is more than ever is needed. But what led you here?
So, it's an interesting kind of loop. About 14 years ago, I was working with college women, helping them get hired outside of college. And so what we were finding was that so many of them were leaving with a degree, but they couldn't find a job in their field. So they were taking what I call get by jobs, like baristas, retail, that kind of thing. And so when they finally did get an offer, they were getting lowballed on their offers because people were focusing on their actual job experience, not their education experience anymore. And so fast forward a little, I've been in corporate public relations for about 25 years. So all I've been doing is putting our brand out, telling our story. And it was one of those days where you're sitting there and it just all kinds of clicks and you go, well, what better brand is there than myself? You know, I mean, that is our most valuable product that we have is us and what we bring to the table and what we can offer an organization. And so that's how it all kind of began, is putting two and two together, knowing that there was a need out there in the workforce for people to be able to get seen, get visible, whether it's for their first job or whether it's visibility for a promotion. And it's just all kind of fell in line from there.
I love it. And there's several areas I want to talk to. There's the idea of the salesperson, right? The salesperson trying to find that unique selling proposition to be able to differentiate themselves from other salespeople in the industry, right? Because you're not always going to be the best product for everybody, right? But you want to find the best, you want to find the people that you are the best product for. And sometimes that takes some time, right? Because people don't always know what they want, they usually, or what they need. They usually know what they want. It takes some time to get there. But then you've got the other idea, what you just mentioned is the idea of a B2B brand and having all of my people in my company being their own brands, so that when you look at who my company is, there are a bunch of, as you mentioned a lot, brand advocates of my brand, all who are people that are branded themselves, which adds even more character and stack to the credibility. So let's start with the salesperson or the individual person. So you mentioned something working with young ladies coming into school and getting now judged almost a year out of based on their first employment. And so we work with a lot of college students. How important is it to start this branding early?
Yeah, it's super important that you get an early start on branding. The internet has a long life. So if you're busy posting about all the fraternity parties, all the beach trips, all that kind of stuff while you're out there, when you start going for those first job interviews, that's what people are going to find. So you really want to start, at least a year out before you start going and doing interviews, cleaning it up, making sure that what is out there is what you're wanting to portray. Start talking about projects from school, start talking about internships, start talking about part-time jobs that you've had, anything that can rely the message that you are someone with some experience coming into the market. You want to put your best foot out there. And then the great thing about it is that your brand can grow with you. As your career grows, it's going to continue to show the value that you're bringing to the table. It's going to show the education that you've added. It's going to show the skills that you developed. It's going to show your successes along the way. So it just continues to grow and evolve as your career does, which helps you as you're beginning to make those steps up through any kind of organization or progress on that promotion ladder.
I love that. And you made a fun comment there about sharing fun little vacation stories and party stories. Or so how much of that is really educating people about, or educating young people about where to post what things, like how to differentiate, which platforms for what they are. And also, like you said, if only present on one platform, well, what else is there for them to find in me? But if I'm present on multiple and I'm doing different things on different ones, I'm able to differentiate my brand a little more. Do you have a lot of conversation about this topic?
We do. The first thing is somebody comes and says, "Hey, you should check out my TikTok. It's awesome." And the first thing I go is, "Oh God, I wonder what's out there for them." When I'm
Yeah.
working with some of them right out of school and things. But really, I tell them that they should really focus on LinkedIn for their career. That's where people
Mhm.
first go. And it also, LinkedIn has a relationship with Google. So if someone Googles your name and you have a LinkedIn profile, it's going to come up really high on the search, which is a good thing because it's going to come up before other, say your Instagram or your TikTok or things like that are going to show up for them. So if you can start building out that LinkedIn profile early, you can kind of help avoid some of that. But I always tell people is like, the thing is being authentic across the board. Is like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't show some personality or you shouldn't have a good time with what you're posting. You just need to be careful about what that image is that you're putting out there. Maybe you keep your Instagram private for friends only, whereas your LinkedIn is open to the public so they can search. It's up to you to determine what that right fit is for you. But I do think having that little bit of personality and that authenticity of who I am, what I enjoy, that gives people a good feel of who you are also. And in sales and in any other thing is people love to work with people that are like them. So if you can put out there what is, like maybe you're a foodie on the side, and you're still posting about that. Maybe it ties into, do you sell restaurant equipment, that kind of thing. And you can talk about how the two, how they interrelate, or, I got interested in the restaurant equipment business from being such a foodie, whatever you can do to tie it together that shows that you do have a passion for what you're doing,
Mm.
and you have some other experience to bring that even adds to your credibility as that salesperson too.
Ah, Chellie, I love that. You speak in my language, my love. Really, I mean, because you hear a lot of protecting your image and brand image, and most of the time it comes from attorneys or somebody from a very stuffy perspective. And a lot of times their recommendations do eliminate, they whitewash people. I hate to use that term, but it becomes a blanket person with no authenticity, no real human qualities or nature, right? But the idea, the people that stand out to me the most, the people that I want to work with, are those that I have something in common with and look and attract my attention in the right way, right? So it's about it, and that's very, very interesting the way you said that. What a great tip too, to be able to keep your Instagram private, right? And then your LinkedIn, where it's now present on Google. These are or on Google search. These are things that we never think about, and unfortunately don't learn until later on when we're learning why we made a mistake. So how all right, this is a great concept. So do you work with now a lot of businesses to help them with their employees developing that brand as they go? Because it's very interesting. It's a concept I'm familiar with, the storytelling of that brand, but mostly it's the brand telling their story, but working with brands to actually help their people tell their own stories, which then later tell the brand story. Do you work through this directional way?
Yeah, that's what when I'm doing my corporate training, that's what I focus on
Oh, I
is
love
it's
this.
all about employee engagement. And one of the ways that you can grow the engagement of your workforce is through helping them develop a personal brand. And
Mm,
so the reason that you want to do that is because when they connect with your brand and your values and they see themselves as part of the success of that organization, they're more or less, they're going to be there for life. They're going to be the employees that you go to. They're going to be the ones that want to do the best work for you. They're going to have higher productivity. They're going to have, more output. They're going to be the team member that everybody wants to work with. Fun fact, when I was putting together a recent program that I was doing, there's a fact that says if you want your business to outperform your competition by 202%, what should you do? And it's help your employees build their own personal brands, because you are setting them up and telling them that you want them to have a voice in what's going on for your
mm.
organization as well. So they become a huge advocate for you. It also helps you in retention and rehiring if you need to hire somebody, because who is going to come work for you if it's your coworkers that are already putting out this information that says this is a great place to work, we have high values here, this is a great team organization, they have great benefits, look at what they've allowed me to do, how they've invested in me and my training. You're going to have more people like them that want to come work for you. So I mean, it's almost like it's a win-win all the way around for you.
I love it, Chellie. And you said something very important there too. You said it early on, you said values, right? And it's got to be alignment. You can see when they're making. We're moving more towards the human element. Before it was like, oh, let me put some fake people with some of our T-shirts on a video and pretend like all our employees are really happy and they all got smiles and they're playing ping pong in a social room or something like that, right? Recreating, they're all actors and fake. Right now we're able to do this naturally, and that's really a beautiful transition.
Yeah, in one of the sessions I was leading not too long ago, went around the room and I asked a question usually as part of the training is, if you could do anything and you didn't have to count on a paycheck to be able to get by, what would you do? Two-thirds of the room came up with some kind of philanthropic work. It was, helping the elderly, working at a food pantry, taking care of animals. It was something that was giving back to a community. And so if you can say the organization that I was working for, if they can tie that into, they have a strong philanthropic arm of their organization where they give back to the community. They also empower their employees to be able to help with some customer situations that come up. So you're tying into that need automatically of, I want to be helpful. I want to be able to help someone. I want to make a difference in the world. Now, it may not be on the same scale as what they would do, like if they had an endless supply of funds, but you're still matching that same value that resonates with them. And it makes them already feel more like an integral part of that organization when they align.
I love it so much. And you see so many brands in the past have taken that short route, right? Let's make a big dollar donation to something to try to, to try to get everybody to think that we're really good, but then on a day in and day out basis, they're not practicing these same values. And this is why people that we talk about this great exodus of jobs. Most of it is not just because of all the reasons people are giving credit for. Most of it's because people are like, oh, I could work somebody with a better culture and for a better purpose and do something better with my life. And I think we're starting to see that play out more. So all y'all B2B brands out there that are proud of your culture should be reaching out to Chellie, right? Those who don't want to work with Chellie are like, hey, let's not have her around. We really don't want our people talking about what goes on here. So Chellie, all right, look, I get some great questions all the time, and branding and having somebody here to talk about branding is really important. So LinkedIn is a huge thing. You've mentioned it over and over and over again. I really am loving how they're developing this platform. I think they're really doing a great job of keeping it authentic, trying things, but not making too big of leaps. But all right, everyone has a LinkedIn page. The first thing I do when somebody hits me up, I click on their LinkedIn page and I look briefly. What is the most valuable real estate on a LinkedIn page? What do I really want to focus on? If I could do two things on my LinkedIn page, what am I doing?
All right. So the first part you want to focus on, other than the picture, because everybody's got to have a picture. If your profile doesn't have a picture, you
I'm
know,
not even clicking on
you're
the
not,
name.
no one's
No.
even going to look. They're not going to believe it's real if it doesn't have a picture. So we're just going to bypass that and say everybody should have a picture. So the next thing you want to look at is the headline and the summary. Those are the two areas that everybody reads. And the headline needs to be quick and to the point, and showcase what you do or what you're wanting to do or what value you can perform. And then your summary is where you can get a little bit more in depth. And I look at it the same way as I look at my branding. You want to show a little personality in this branding too. I was working with a client the other day. He's in real estate, and he had been involved with real estate peripheral since he was a kid. His parents had rental property, and he used to go with his dad to fix up this property. And then he went off in a different tangent. He went banking and some other things, and then has finally decided, no, this is what my true love is. Like, I've always loved it. I've wanted to do it. He had some rental properties along the way, and I'm like, how cool is it that you can tell a story that this has been a lifelong passion of yours? That, hey, ever since I was a kid, real estate's been at the heart of what I'm doing. And just think, you resonate with him automatically more because he's telling you a little bit about his personal life. You're seeing the excitement that he has for it from the eyes of a child. Like, I was loving doing this with my dad, going these places and seeing these things. And now I'm carrying on that tradition and doing it as an adult as well. And, and you tie in his finance background and things like that. And he's already more respected and trusted than someone, because he's worked in banking. He's going to lead you down that way a little bit. He's going to show you good properties because he's excited about it. And you make these impressions already just based off his summary that he has on that page now.
I
And
love
that's
that.
really what it is. It's just a sales job for you. So, that's where I tell people to really spend their time, is spend their time on their headline, which is, just like a newspaper or any article. It's what catches your attention first. That's why you're going to go, oh, this is what they do. Then I need to talk to them. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to go into that summary and go, oh, now this is why I really need to talk to them, because this is all the value that they can bring.
It speaks to me like an ad in a funnel page, right?
Exactly.
It's
Same
a
concept. Uh-huh.
exactly. Yeah, I got to get their attention just enough to, if they're walking down the road and they see the billboard, they're going to stop and take a second look, and then I got to tell that story brief enough where they want to now take whatever action step brought them there in that
Yeah,
summary.
and that's really all branding is you telling your story,
Yeah.
making that personal connection with somebody, giving them the reasons that they should trust you, that they should know you, why they should like you, and why they should do business with you.
I love that. I love that. All right. So we're always talking about branding when somebody's making a transition from one job to the next, right? But what about those people who are developing themselves within their own company? We do a lot of coaching and training for some big mortgage companies. And people can get lost within the mix. It's hard to get the attention of your supervisor when they're managing or overseeing, 20 or 30 or 40 people. And often branding and in that place, everybody's on social media. It's a great place. I can see anybody in my company at almost any time. So how can I leverage my myself, how can I tell a better story to get promoted? How can I build my brand better to get the attention of the people I work with or work for?
Yeah, Forbes put out something recently that said like over 80% of employers use social media to screen candidates and their own employees when they're looking at
Ooh,
promotions and stuff. So, it really is that important that you are setting yourself up for success on these platforms. One of the other things that I taught, is that you need your brand is not only your social media. When your brand is how you show up at work every day as well.
ooh, I like
And
this.
so when I'm working with some of my clients, we talk about how can you be visible at the office? Because if
Mm,
you have a manager that has 30 or 40 people like you were talking about, let's face it, the ones that's causing the problem is going to get the attention, and then the one that is doing superstar work is going to get the attention. Everybody else is just going to kind of fall out in the middle, like, oh, they're just trucking along. I don't have to spend my energy dealing with those. I'm going to deal with the polar opposite ends of the spectrum for
sure,
me.
yeah.
So what you want to do in that point in time is to really get on that supervisor's radar. And
Mm,
one of the ways I coach clients to do that is I call it a Monday morning check-in.
okay.
So if you send an email on Monday morning that says, here's the top 5 things I'm working on this week, do you see anything that I'm missing? Or is there something that I could do to better serve you in this department?
Mm,
And you let them know what's going on. And then what I say is you follow that up on Thursday, not Friday, because everybody's getting ready to get out of the office and not thinking about it. But on Thursday, you follow back up and say, here's where I am. I'm getting ready to plan my next week. Are there any specifics that you want me to focus on in the upcoming week? So you're on their radar for being proactive. You're being on their radar for when they're in a staff meeting or in a production meeting. You've already given them the answers about what you're working on and where you stand on whatever project. And then you're also advocating for yourself by saying, I want to take on roles and responsibilities that you feel are important for this department. So can you lead me where I need to go by telling me the next steps I need to take?
mm.
So you automatically become top of mind then for all the right reasons when anything opens up or when there's new projects that they can put people on or when there's new teams that develop. You are there because they're like, oh, I wouldn't have to worry about this person because they're so consistent in what they're checking in and how they're doing, and they're willing to make that step out and make it easy for me as a supervisor.
Chelly, that is such a great way to take a negative situation or a situation that could be perceived as negative and turn it into a really positive opportunity. And I believe if I'm going to completely simplify what you said in a very simple way, but over communication.
Yeah.
I mean, really like to go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm totally agreeing. It's like, a lot of people say another email in my inbox, but if you're showing up with, I'm just giving you facts and I'm just making sure I'm where you want me to be. You're not adding to the spam at that point in time. You're actually giving concise information that they know that they can go back and look at any time. And if next week something comes up and they're like, what did they say about? They can click back on that email. They've got it in their inbox, and they can see exactly what it is they needed to know, and they don't have to go track it down.
It is not another email in the inbox. It is a valuable email in the inbox, one of very few, more than likely. And I love that idea too. Not something that's creating more work. Hey, like, because here's the same execution, but with the wrong direction. You could send an email and say, hey, what do you think I should be working on this week? And your intent could be right. I want to make sure that I'm working on everything that they say. But now what you're doing is you're creating work for them, work that you should be doing. So the idea that you're putting it out there, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm on top of it. I already take care of it. Here's the stuff I'm taking care of this week. You know it because you don't have to worry about it. I'm just putting it on your front thing to remind you, and then putting that little piece on there. Hey, if I'm missing anything, I want to make sure that we're both on the same page. And that over communication is giving them so much value. But like you said, keeping top of mind. That's a really, really good one, Chelly. And that one could be done any way along the board. You could be cross-reaching even on that. Hey, maybe I want the marketing team to see what I'm doing over here. But hey guys, I'm working with y'all, and I just want to let y'all know what I'm doing here so that we can stay aligned with programs. I know what you're working on as well, but just want to stay top of mind.
Yeah,
by
it can
adding
work
value.
either way. If you're working on,
Love that.
so many times multiple departments are involved in projects and everything. And when we think our project is the most important because it's the one that I care about the most. And so if you have a bunch of interdepartmental connections going on, it is a great idea to let them know, hey, you're not the only thing I have on my plate. These are the other things. So if we need to adjust timelines or we need to do something, it's not something that sneaks up on somebody. You're already putting it out there and they should have an idea of what's going on in your world.
I absolutely love that. We've got so many mission-driven people now, right? This younger generations, they're so much more aligned with mission and purpose and value, and this being aligned with these causes. As you move towards those areas, it can be very easy to get sucked into something that's very mission-driven and a lot of promises, but maybe not following through. As a person out there who's delivering a lot of value and really aligned with the value and the mission of the company and really believes in the cause, but maybe aren't getting the progress, aren't moving as fast as possible. How do you know when it's the right time? I heard you got a good story about a Fruit Loop or something like that. But how do you know when it's the right time to leave a gig right now? Because look, everybody's leaving, and listen, not only that, but we're being recruited heavily right now. Anybody worth their weight and who does a halfway decent job of telling your story on LinkedIn is getting recruited heavily right now. So how do you know when it's the time to leave and when it's the time to stay and double down?
Yeah, so mine came like a slap in the face one day. I
Okay,
said,
all right.
so,
I love a good
um,
story.
those are always the obvious ones when when you go, okay, probably time for me to look someplace else. But yeah, the company that I had worked for about 20 years went through a realignment, new CEO, all that kind of stuff came in, and I went from having a seat at the table to someone who thought marketing communications didn't have any value whatsoever.
Hmm.
And and it became apparent one evening. I was working in an event and received an email on a publication that we were putting out, and basically was informed that their teenage daughter did not like the publication and they wanted to know if my skills had come from a box of Fruit Loops. And it was one of those things where it had been
Okay.
trucking on for about 6 months, and like you show up every day and you go, okay, today is going to be different, it's going to be okay, I'm going to eventually break through. And plus, when you have so many years in a place, you're thinking your
You're vested.
benefits, all the people that you've worked with, all of it starts to play in. But what I really hadn't expected was how easily it affected me personally, how I went from being very confident and very sure of myself. And, like I had several industry awards and that kind of thing. So I should have been very confident that I was quite capable of doing my job and doing it well. But knowing that someone didn't value it and somebody in a position of authority didn't value it,
Mm.
and then, coming into that situation day after day, you take that with you. You leave work totally dissatisfied. You leave
Been
work
there.
and you take it home with you. And then everybody around you is miserable too, because you're like, oh God, I have to get up and go again tomorrow. And it's going to suck again
Hmm.
tomorrow. And then you come home in a worse attitude than you had when you left that morning. And so I say that not everybody has those slap in the face moments where you get an email and you go, I'm going to frame that and write my resignation letter tonight and I will find something different. And so it was so funny. I said, I did write my resignation letter that right. I had the sense not to turn it in until I found what I was, looking for. And it was probably a little harsher than the one I actually turned in, but it was great reading every evening beside the bed just to reinforce the fact that you have something to offer, you have value, and whether this person realizes it or not, then you're going to show them one day. And so I say that, really when you start looking for something else is like, I tell people, do you feel like you're being invested in? Do you feel like you're being challenged? If you're not growing and you're not learning things, if you're not, having that moment of challenge in the office where your duties change and your responsibilities change, that's probably a time you want to consider, am I happy with status quo? Do I just want a paycheck? And that's fine. Some people love the 8 to 5. I go home and I never think about it. And then I show back up the next day, it pays the house payment, and that's perfect. If that's what you want and it gives you the ability to do what you want to do. I say there are no perfect jobs. There's only the perfect job for you. And that's the job that allows you to live the life that you want to live. But if you're like me and like a lot of others where you need a challenge, you need to feel, like I'm learning something, I need to feel like my skills are being valued and that kind of thing. If you get that feeling at work, it's probably start time to look for something else. And, I say that with a caveat that there's going to be bad days in every business. But when the bad days start outweighing the good, when you have them more consistently than you have the good ones, then that's when it's a really good key. That little light bulb should be going off, going, I need to really think about this. Is this where I need to stay? And I tell people, do some self evaluation too, because the worst thing you can do is put yourself in that same situation in another organization. So, what is it that you're missing from where you're at? What is it that you need? What does that ideal or that perfect job for you look like? Maybe it gives you flex time so that you can go to kids' soccer games and sporting events and that kind of thing. Or maybe it is, I'm going to be part of high functioning teams that have projects consistently and they were meeting deadlines and we're doing that kind of thing. Whatever environment it is that you're going to thrive in, make sure you've done the mindset work first and got that good picture of what it's going to be, and then make the decision whether it's time for me to move on or not.
Chellie, you preaching to the choir, and I'm just loving everything that you're saying here. You got to have a vision, right? You have to have a vision of what you want. It's very easy to know what you don't want, but when you don't know what you want, you don't know if it's you or the job, right?
Exactly.
And the last thing you want to do is jump job to job, going, oh, whenever they value me, I feel valuable, and as soon as they stop valuing me, I don't feel valuable anymore. Maybe I should go to a new job. That is not going to be a streak of a pattern that you want to persist in your life. I love what you said. Address the mindset first. And it is a very amazing thing as well that our value is not in just our work. Yes, it is a part of our value and our contribution, right? But because someone else doesn't appreciate it, doesn't mean that you don't have value. But value does need somebody to appreciate it in order for it to be valuable. So if you are not in the right place, I think it's knowing your value, knowing it's not being appreciated, then finding another place where you appreciate your value and somebody else can appreciate it as well. And having that core of appreciating your value first was such an important part about your story. That letter allowed you to remind yourself of that value over and over again until you probably became the person who then felt value, and then you attracted the job that you need. Because that's the other thing. You don't want to go get a job when you don't feel valuable. You're just going to throw yourself into the same situation again.
Exactly.
I love this. This is really great conversation. So, all right. So, as a sales leader, I'm business to business now, and B2B. I'm going to say the term all the time, but I love the idea that it's business to human now, right? And when I'm selling to somebody, it's also great as a buyer to have some information about me, right? So that I don't mind being personally full personalization in my outreach. I like that. I would rather you reach out to me in a way that an avenue I'd like to talk into, in a way that I'd like to talk, and things I'd like to talk about. I'd like for you to know me better, and I think it's just as important as us buyers as it is those sellers in developing your brand. Do you work with a lot of buyers in this area?
Yeah, it is all about building that trust and building that relationship. And
It's not
when
buyer
people
seller. It's
know
just
you,
human.
yeah, when people
Yeah.
know you as a person, e- what better said this way, maybe credibility is currency.
Ooh,
And
I like that.
when your credibility matches what they see online, what they see when they're talking to you or hear when they're talking to you, what comes through in the emails that go back and forth, or when you meet face to face for coffee and you're having these conversations, if any one piece of that is off, then that trust isn't going to be there,
Mm,
because we recognize, we have those innate senses where like, something feels off about this, because this is what they say online, but this is what I'm hearing, in person, and like, what's not matching here. And so it's just like, like when you're leading a team, like if you're the leader of a sales team or any other kind of team, you want your team to be producing the best work. And you may be saying all the right things like, I value you, and I'm telling the boss about all the great work you're doing. But if all they see is like, it's me, 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 I've done this, look at my amazing accomplishments, whatever, and you never reference the team that's behind you doing this kind of thing or helping you reach these
mm.
goals, then they're not going to be as adept or as fired up about working for you as they are if you're on your social media talking about the wins that your team had this week, that what a success, that they're making you, and how proud you are that they went through this training and came out aces. Whatever it is that, each thing has to match. So what you're saying has to match what people are seeing, and what they're seeing has to be what you're putting out there, and it has to be authentic to you, because you can only keep up a preface so long.
Love that. Yeah, you can't keep track of those lies, y'all. And I love the thing that keeps popping up for me, there's so many avenues where this is important. We always look at, all right, what are people looking at when they're trying to hire me? That was the first branding idea, right? Well, now we're looking at, all right, what about if I want to be promoted? All right, well, what about leveraging my brand for motivating my team? Like, that is such a great concept of leveraging social media as a tool to build your brand, but shine the light on other people around you. And that's a growth hack right there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, as we say, you amplify yourself by amplifying others. And, gratitude is such a big part or it should be such a big part of the corporate world, like, because you didn't get there on your own. You had someone that invested in you, someone that taught you the ropes, someone that showed you, all the pitfalls to
Mhm.
avoid, someone that, showed you the best place to go have lunch because it was quick and you could get there and back in the time that you had. I mean, you had somebody that did all of these things for you. And you wouldn't have gotten where you were unless someone had taken those special moments with you. And you being able to do the same thing, whether it is, sitting down with someone at your office, having coffee, sharing a moment, or if it's praising them online for something that they did that, made your day easier. Anytime that you can share gratitude, I'm a huge fan of that. I think it exponentially increases with what you're doing, and it goes such a long way. We hear so much negative and there's so much, mistrust, like we talked about earlier, out there today, that when you can shine a little positive and you can do it in a way that amplifies someone else, you're so much better off.
Chellie, I just love this theme behind all of our conversation here, where you're going back to this idea of being internally motivated, being coming from a place of a growth mindset, coming from a place of authenticity. It's you really keep going back there. You notice when people are putting those things about just talking about ourselves or myself, it's usually they don't. Once again, they don't feel their own value, and I think this is another kind of side piece about creating your brand is focusing on how great you are, right? The hardest thing I taught people, nobody wants to write their own bios or summaries because nobody wants to talk about themselves that way. Some people do. Some people are really, really, really good at it. I envy them a little bit, to be honest with you. But a lot of us, we don't. Could you just write it for me? Could you say those nice things about me, right? And because we don't want to write, but the idea of going through that process, it's not bragging. It's recognizing your value. It's appreciating your value, which is a very, very healthy process to take. And so I love this concept in so many different ways, that how it helps the individual realize their own personal value, how it helps them within their own company and their own brand, how it helps the brand that they're working for, how it helps them in the transition phases, all these different areas, how it brings them through life when done the proper way. How often do you see people transform in the process of building their brand?
Oh gosh, that's the fun part about doing what I do, whether it's, in the corporate setting and having, a company realize, that by helping their employees showcase themselves and their talents and their strengths, the first question I always get is like, if I help my employees do that, is it someone else going to come try and get them?
Aren't they going to
And,
leave or somebody else
that's
going to
when
get
I
them? Yeah.
always throw out that other stat is that, like 87% of them will never leave if they're at a company that they feel like truly is investing in them and cares
Mhm.
for them.
Absolutely.
And, and it is so fun when you can see people really start aligning their values with the company value. And like I said, when they can see themselves as part of the success chain, like what I'm doing really does make a difference in this organization, or it really impact, my little job that I think is only me is impacting 5 other departments. And all of this together makes a big impact on the organization as a whole. When you can see that, and the same is on any team situation, like we're talking about a sales team or any kind of work team, or even personally, like when you can see what you're doing has a chain of impact, I think it's a no-brainer at that point in time. You get kind of addicted to that feeling of, let me see how far we can take this. I tell my clients all the time that, you know, there's plenty of success out there. It's not a competition. It's just a matter of you going and getting it and putting the work in there to it. So it doesn't really matter what you do, what I do, what anybody else is doing. If you want it, you can attain it by going out there and putting the work into it. And the same thing happens when you're building that brand. If you build that brand and you're consistently out there with that message and you're growing it as you grow throughout your career, and people can see that evolution of how you're moving through, developing your leadership, how you're developing your skills, how you're developing, you know, from the opportunities that have presented themselves to you, then I mean, you're going to have a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, we could talk all day about this. I'm gonna have to end this a couple minutes early so I can have a couple minutes with Chellie afterwards. We might have to do some stuff together, Chellie. I really love this, and you know, it's instinctual. You know, sometimes you just know and you connect with somebody. But I just really love the common thread of how the branding story that you're bringing builds the human inside as well, and it's just and builds the brand in which they're representing, not just their own personal brand. It has such a holistic value to it, and it's like credit cards. It's like interest, compounding interest, y'all. That this stuff will compound the value in which the ripples, you know, impact everything else that you do, and then the bigger those ripples turn to waves down the road because of this, the compound effect of this branding. So Chellie, I really love what you're doing. Where can our followers, our listeners find you?
So any of the social channels, you can find me. Just put my name in and you'll get it. My website, chellephillips.com. And I'd love to connect. And I connect often on LinkedIn and share all kinds of information out there. So that's probably the best place to find me all the time.
You'll see her links in the comments down here. Chellie Phillips, y'all. Definitely check her out, chellephillips.com, and on LinkedIn. You're going to be hearing more from her here. We've got a blog coming from Chellie here real soon that you have to check out, and a lot more. Y'all, thank you so much for being here. Chellie, you are awesome. I really appreciate you. I'm definitely going to have you hold on a couple minutes after we're done. I want to talk to you about a couple things, but we might have to have you back too. This is a really great conversation.
Thanks so
Y'all, thank
much.
you. Absolutely. Y'all, thank you for listening. Make sure you go put all the stars down there in the comments if you enjoyed yourself. And if you didn't, come back next time and we'll get you the next one. All right, y'all. That's Leads to Growth with the National Association of Sales Professionals. I'm Chris McCoy. This is Chellie Phillips. Oh, she's over there. We'll see y'all in the next one. Cheers, y'all.